On August 15, 1769, in the rugged island of Corsica, a child was born into modest nobility. His name was Napoleone di Buonaparte. Just months earlier, France had annexed Corsica from Genoa, and young Napoleon would grow up both Corsican by heart and French by fate. A duality that would shape his destiny. As a boy, Napoleon was not particularly charismatic. He was short, spoke French with a thick Corsican accent, and often felt like an outsider at school. But he had one weapon: his mind. He devoured books on history and warfare, idolizing heroes like Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar. In 1789, the French Revolution exploded. As the old monarchy crumbled, chaos and opportunity swept across France. Napoleon, now a young officer in the French artillery, saw not just turmoil, but a ladder. He was ready to climb. In 1793, revolutionary forces struggled to retake the port city of Toulon from royalist forces and British troops. Napoleon proposed a bold artillery strategy. His plan worked. Toulon fell. At just 24, he was promoted to brigadier general. A star was rising. Napoleon met Josephine de Beauharnais in 1795. She was elegant, older, and deeply connected to Parisian high society. Their marriage was not just romantic, it was strategic. She opened doors, he kicked them wide open. In 1796, he was given command of the French army of Italy. Against all odds, he led a hungry, disorganized army to a stunning string of victories. He defeated the Austrians, redrew the map of Italy, and looted priceless art, both for France and for glory. Seeking to disrupt British trade routes, Napoleon invaded Egypt in 1798. Though the military results were mixed, he brought scholars and scientists with him, ushering in the Egyptian campaign, which uncovered the Rosetta Stone and launched modern Egyptology. In 1799, sensing political instability, Napoleon returned to France. The government was weak. The people were tired. In a bloodless coup, he seized power as first consul. At just 30, Napoleon was the most powerful man in France. Napoleon wasn't just a warrior, he was a builder. He reformed the tax system, centralized the administration, and most importantly, introduced the Napoleonic Code, a civil legal system that still influences law around the world today. In 1804, inside the Grand Notre Dame Cathedral, Napoleon crowned himself Emperor of the French. It was symbolic. He answered not to the Pope, nor to history. He was the author of his own legend. Through a mix of diplomacy and brilliant warfare, Napoleon defeated Austria, Prussia, and Russia. By 1807, he was the undisputed master of continental Europe, ruling directly or through puppet kings, even placing his own siblings on thrones. But his empire was not unbreakable. In Spain, a brutal guerrilla war drained French resources and morale. It was the beginning of a long unraveling. The people he had liberated began to resist. In 1812, Napoleon made his greatest mistake: the invasion of Russia. He led over 600,000 men into the vast eastern plains. They reached Moscow, but it was a trap. The city was burning. The winter came. Only a fraction survived the retreat. The Russian disaster inspired Europe to rise. A coalition of nations closed in. In 1814, Paris fell. Napoleon was forced to abdicate. He was exiled to the island of Elba. For many, it was the end of the story, but not for Napoleon. In 1815, in one of history's most daring returns, Napoleon escaped Elba and marched into France. The army sent to arrest him joined him instead. he reclaimed power in what would become known as the 100 Days. But Europe would not allow his return. At Waterloo, Napoleon faced the Duke of Wellington and a coalition army. Rain, hesitation, and Prussian reinforcements doomed him. It was his final defeat. The dream ended in mud and blood. After Waterloo, Napoleon was exiled again, this time to the remote island of St. Helena in the South Atlantic. There would be no escape, no army, no empire, only memory. On St. Helena, he dictated his memoirs, reflecting on glory and betrayal, power and loss. He remained proud, stubborn, and deeply aware of his place in history. On May 5, 1821, Napoleon Bonaparte died. He was 51. Death did not erase him. In France, people whispered, "He will return." In 1840, his remains were brought back to Paris in a grand ceremony. The legend of Napoleon had become larger than life. His Napoleonic Code shaped legal systems in Europe, Latin America, and beyond. His reforms in education, infrastructure, and civil administration still echo in modern France. The man was gone, but his fingerprints remained. Napoleon revolutionized warfare. His tactics, use of corps, and emphasis on speed and mobility are still studied in military academies around the world. Clausewitz, Sun Tzu, and Napoleon. His name stands among the giants of strategy. To some, he was a warmonger and tyrant. To others, a hero who rose from nothing and spread the ideals of merit and modernity. History debates, but never forgets him. From Tolstoy's War and Peace to Hollywood blockbusters, Napoleon has remained a cultural icon. His silhouette, hat, hand in coat, stern gaze, is instantly recognizable across the globe. Though he once dismantled monarchies, his nephew would later become Emperor Napoleon III, founding the Second French Empire. His bloodline may have faded, but his idea of ambition without limits endured. Psychology coined the term Napoleon complex to describe men who overcompensate for short stature. But ironically, historical evidence suggests Napoleon was average height for his time. Myths were born as quickly as victories. He never forgot Corsica. The island gave him his roots, his fire, and his first dreams of rebellion. In many ways, Napoleon was always the Corsican boy, bold, underestimated, and unafraid. What if he had won at Waterloo? What if he had never invaded Russia? Historians still ask. But history is not made of ifs. It is made of choices. And Napoleon made more than most. He loved books, hated inefficiency, was obsessive with detail, and trusted few. Behind the legend was a man, complex, brilliant, and flawed. A man who believed destiny could be taken by force. Napoleon once said, "Imagination rules the world." Though his empire crumbled, the idea that a single person, by will, intellect, and courage, could change the course of history, that idea still burns. From a boy on a forgotten island to the ruler of Europe, Napoleon Bonaparte remains one of history's greatest enigmas. He reminds us that greatness does not come from birth, but from belief. He may have stood small in stature, but in history, he stands tall.